The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the Brothers Wisp.
Hey everybody, this is Greg with the Brothers Wisp, number 135, coming to you from the motherland. Today we have two very special guests. One who is working on his pirate mustache right now, Nick Arellano.
Oh, I thought you meant Mike.
You could almost twirl it at the ends, bud. So you're getting close. If only we could hear it, the ASMR of you twirling.
Yeah, I've got crisp on, so it's canceling out that stuff.
Oh, lame. All right. We also have Mikey from Chicagoland.
Tried to think of something else and I couldn't, so I'll just do something different words in the same cadence.
That's your new hey, how's it going? I tried to think of something different. That's what you said last time. So we've got our new normal. We're right there in routine. Excellent. All right, let's do the first thing, which is our new patrons. We actually have two this go around, and their names are pretty foolproof. I'm thinking I'm not going to screw this up. And so if you go to patreon.com/brotherswisp, throws a couple of bones, you get access to our patron-only Slack, as well as, you're just kind of generally supporting the podcast. Supporting the podcast is less interesting than joining the Slack, though, so I would definitely do it for that. But this go around, we have Mark Rowe. Is that how you'd say that? And David Flory, sure. I believe. Tried shouting them out in the Slack channel itself, but they're shy lurkers, so we haven't seen them actually say anything yet. But I know they're both in there, so hopefully we can force those guys to become one of us soon. One of us. All right. So let's do some of our sponsorship stuff. I will do tower coverage today. Tower coverage is your RF propagation system to empower your network, real-time data metrics, enable your coverage area, reach your customer base, and more. The industry's best RF propagation mapping system allows website integration for customer sign-up and pre-qualification. Use this data to scientifically plan network expansion and help your WISP succeed. Get a free trial today at towercoverage.com. We still need to get Denny on here and talk to him about tower coverage. I know he wanted to chat with us, so we should do that soon.
For those wondering what the little pause was there in the middle of Greg's speech, so we have the text for all these sponsor notices and whatnot in our Google Sheets that we use to track all the things we're talking about in the supporting documentation and whatnot, and that's just at the end of the row. And so he probably had to just scroll a little bit to see what the next words were.
I had to scroll it. I accidentally pasted it in there too far to the right. It needed to be a little bit more to the left. That's my bad.
But for those interested in knowing what's in our notes, that is one of the benefits of the Patreons.
Nobody cares about that. It's all the same stuff we talk about anyway.
well, as we were trying to figure out what we were going to talk about this show, we're like, worst case, we only talked about half the things we put in the notes for last show, so there actually is a bunch more stuff we don't ever get to for those that want to poke around.
Yeah, we always have a little extra fodder. All right, Mikey, which sponsor are you going to read for us?
I will go with Sonar, brought to you by Sonar, a scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system. Learn more at Sonar.software.
Booyah.
So that leaves QuickBit. So QuickBit is an indoor and outdoor 60 gigahertz kit that is set it and forget it simple. Apparently it's got a crazy feature set for the price. It's got an API, deployment tools, pretty solid distance, and like a lot of the products, it's up to about 8 clients per hub. You can check them out at quickbit.com, KWIKBIT.com.
It actually saw some advertising from them recently. I'm not sure if they're going to be at the Whisper show or what, but I saw them advertising something.
It looks like they've updated the website a bit, and they have a buy button now. Is the store actually rocking and rolling? Let me.
A lot of people have been interested in getting quotes and stuff from them
They
recently.
do. So the store is actually live. I'm in there right now. Add to cart. Check out. All right. Yeah. So the store is actually operational. So quickbit.com, the store is there. No longer do you have to actually contact another human being. You could just order right off the website. So
Incredible.
all you antisocial people just like me, go for it. Get in there.
I absolutely hate it when I have to like call somebody for like, oh, I need to buy one of these. Like, I know exactly what I want. Don't make me go through all those steps of having a phone call, playing phone tag, doing all this, getting a quote. Just let me buy the darn thing.
Fair enough. Sometimes though, you can actually get a discount if you give them a holler. You start talking to them. You know, they'll knock a couple points off. So sometimes it's worth wasting a little bit of extra time. I'm not saying waste because it's not necessarily a waste of time if you get a discount. You know, utilizing your time more wisely, perhaps. So get in there. Let's check it out. All right, you guys ready to jump into the stuff of the things? Now that we have Nick here, I had some questions saved up for him from last time. He sounds excited about it.
Questions, huh?
So this has been around the block for a little while, and we've heard tale of it, but I haven't seen anybody dive in with both feet with as much fervor as you. So I thought you would probably be at a good place to pick your brain a little bit about TR-069.
Okay, so what do you know about the technical review 069, Greg?
Well, for one, I didn't realize that TR stood for technical review. So.
Or technical report.
Okay, well, report. Oh, so you were testing me.
I was testing you.
See, I was already honest about it. I'll be right up front and say I didn't actually. I don't really know that much about it. From my understanding, and I'm sure this is like a kindergarten version, and I'm probably getting some pieces wrong. It's a method for, I guess, in mass. I think, I want to say, isn't this something that like DSL providers and like cable modem providers use a lot of times where you take like kind of a blank piece of kit, you throw it out there, and then will auto provision the gear. Is that kind of is that the dream?
Yeah, I'm just getting into TR-069 and looking at packet captures and stuff. So definitely, as the weeks go on, I'm going to have a lot more information. But basically, it is a carrier grade like management protocol. And I didn't realize this, but apparently there's like IP phones and a bunch of different IoT type devices. I have a hard time finding any actual vendors and documentation on it, but apparently there's a large class of devices that support this. And it is basically a remote management and provisioning, I guess you could call it a standard. So basically there's a whole bunch of write-ups on the protocol itself and how the communication works, and it's up to the vendors to have it be compliant with a ACS, which is like an access control system for TR-069. MikroTik has really good documentation on their implementation of the client, but I just started diving into it. I think it's really interesting. So one of the important parts about the protocol is that everything communication-wise is, like session-wise, I should say, is initiated by the client, the CPE, the remote device. So these remote devices can basically ping the provisioning server, and there's some bidirectional communication that happens, and it's all over. Usually you would set up TLS, and it's over HTTPS, so there's no like proprietary protocol you have to use. It's just basically XML APIs back and forth between server and client. But it is very heavily used in like DOCSIS cable systems. A lot of the companies like Comcast and the other big carriers, they have a lot of custom-made modem router combos that they've been deploying, and a lot of those have TR-069 embedded in them to allow them to have full management and control over all the devices they have deployed. So it's picking up quite a bit of steam in the carrier space because it allows you to read and write information. It allows you to do firmware updates, push like default configurations. You kind of have full access to everything that's being managed on the TR-069 side.
You said remote management, so that makes me think like a little bit of monitoring. Do people use it for like diagnostics and stuff like that?
Well, it completely depends on how much the clients have implemented. There's a couple other more specific technical report pieces that are more to do with monitoring and collecting like metadata. This is mostly like back and forth XML for configuration and reading simple parameters. I think some vendors have things where you could do like trace routes or ping tests and stuff like that. Maybe even some wireless scans, depending on the device support. But the support for the feature set isn't necessarily the same across all the different products out there. So it's kind of depends on what you're trying to manage.
So the folks listening here, why is this important to them? It's like how are you using it? That would be like interesting.
Well, the way that I want to use it is to mass manage in-home routers. So if you have, a few dozen, maybe even like low hundreds of devices, it's probably not too bad to manage those with some scripting or configuration pushing. But once you get into the thousands of devices, it gets a little more difficult as far as like scaling and security, and especially if you've got networks that span large areas, and maybe you need to kind of put some stuff out in the cloud. So with a lot of solutions, you'd kind of need direct IP access, which would probably require like VPNs and all kinds of interesting stuff if you need to cloud host it. But with like a TR-069 type system, the CPEs can ping out even if they don't have a public IP. As long as they're NATed out to the internet, they can ping the server and they can have that communication back and forth over TLS encryption with HTTPS. So it's secure. And there's a lot of different mechanisms in the protocol for security, such as provisionable username and passwords to even communicate with the server. There's a lot of stuff in like the headers you can use to track requests between the clients so that people can't really spoof or try to mess with the payload. And also, the server itself cannot initiate a session with the client. The only thing it can do is kind of ping the client and ask it to start a new session. So there's a lot of security type stuff baked in, which makes a lot of sense because this is kind of for the carrier space at scale. So you wouldn't want this thing to be compromisable. So by design, a lot of the mechanisms in place are secure.
So if your CPE was, say, on a carrier grade NAT address or RFC 1918, and it pings out, it gets to the server, and then the server can start telling it, hey, do this, do that sort of thing?
Yes, basically it makes an inform request, which has like a bunch of information like a serial number, what model it is, IP address information. There's also a, if you can reach the IP directly, there's a specific URL that the server can ping to get it to initiate a fresh session. And there's also like a periodic inform field that you can fill out. So you could tell it every 30 seconds, I want you to reach out to the server. And so it's just kind of like a quick ping with some information. The server can respond with either an empty request to tell it like there's no work that needs to be done, or you can have a series of XML responses for data that the server needs or configuration that needs to be changed, whatever you want. So that's basically how the communication works. So if it's behind NAT, it's going to hit the URL for the TR-069 ACS, and then the server is going to respond with work to do or information it needs or just an empty response every time it informs.
So if you like make a configuration side or a configuration on the ACS side, you only have to theoretically wait maybe like 30 seconds before the CPE pings, realizes it's got some work to do, and then, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, and it's pretty nice because it's not long running sessions. They're all quick back and forth XML API responses. So you can easily put it behind a load balancer for scale and scale it out pretty easily because it's just HTTP traffic. There's no long-term running sessions between the server and all of the clients. So you have a lot of flexibility on the back end to kind of scale it and build it up. And it's just XML back and forth. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, and I would assume probably on average, right, your CPE is going to ping out to the server. There's not going to be any work done. So you're probably looking at a total of like 80 milliseconds for that whole communication to happen, and then it tears down, right? And it's gone.
Yeah, it just depends on the location and the load on the server, but
Right.
a lot of the XML documents are pretty small. It's not very large. So most of the payloads are tiny, and there's a lot of back and forth. So so also you can have the client ping the server says it needs work, then the CPE replies with the information that was requested, and then the server can request more information and keep the chain going as long as it needs to until eventually it returns an empty response, and then the client will return an empty response back, and then the communication stops. And then it'll wait for the next inform to ping the server again.
Yeah, rock and roll. So you were talking about lots of different CPEs that can use it. So I'm a heavy user of MikroTik stuff, and the last time I did configurations for an MDU, I was configuring 135 individual units. And that took me a little while to use net install to get like the default config and stuff on there. But I guess the dream with this is, so you're still going to have to load some kind of base configuration in each one of these, right? But they'll all be identical, right? Generic and identical.
Yeah. So you would also have to install the package, the TR-069 client package first of all.
Oh.
So for each of those, you got to upload and reboot to put the package on there, or you could use another tool to kind of push that out and have them reboot. But you can provision it using DHCP options. So there's a few options you can use where you tell the CPE the ACS URL, and the TR-069 package on MikroTik will ping that server. I believe you can also pass another parameter in DHCP for like a shared key. Apparently it was designed for multiple carriers to kind of share a TR-069 ACS server, and so in the DHCP options you can put some meta information like what ISP it belongs to, so that the ACS has a little bit more intelligence on how to provision that specific device. But on MikroTik you can push a default config, like basically net install using this, or just have it run an arbitrary script if it's not supported in the TR-069 XML parameters. So yeah, you would generally just put the package on there, either pre-fill the ACS information or pass it through DHCP, and then provision it remotely.
That's cool. I mean, when I was like pre-provisioning all of my devices, each one had a unique configuration, so I had to make sure that the right router got the right sticker, and so I was doing everything in sequence. And I mean, I developed a flow to it, but if it was quite literally you're loading the exact same package on everything, I think it would have been a lot easier. Yeah, I could have just lined up 10 of them, plugged them all in, worked for a little while, then look over and then, click the button, then work for a little while, and then just without having to think. So that would have been nice.
Yeah, and something that's kind of compelling about it is there's a bunch of life cycles where the CPE will ping the server regardless of like the inform interval that's set, like 30 seconds or a minute. So like when the device first boots up, it'll immediately reach out to the server. I think after like a package update, there's like a whole bunch of criteria on when in the technical review documentation a device should hit the server. So one reason that could be compelling is, let's say you need to update your firewall rules or firmware across 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 devices, however many you're managing, and some of them happen to be offline at the time. Well, depending on the software that you use to currently manage stuff, like something more Ansible, if it's not online at the time, you're just going to have to rerun it later. But with something like TR-069, as soon as the client comes back online and hits the server can know, like, this one hasn't been updated yet, so now let's start the update. So as long as they come online at some point from you pushing out provisioning or whatever, you know that eventually they will all get firmware updated as long as they eventually get back online. You wouldn't have to keep track of which ones have been done and haven't been done and rerun a playbook or anything like that. You would have the ability to just kind of do that when it pings the server when it comes back online, which would be pretty nice.
Yeah, very nice. So I know when I was doing my mask configuration, what I did was I had a MikroTik, like a 326 or something, like, the 24 port PoEs. And I had port 1 set to like VLAN 10, port 2 was VLAN or maybe it was like 11, 12, 13. Like each port was a different one, up to 10. And then I brought those over a trunk to a VMware server, and I had 10 Windows VMs all running net install. And so they would just boot up, and I had like a Windows share on the back end with all the different configurations, and they all just had that shared drive mapped. And so I was just going, it's like, all right, room, 111, room 112, room 113, just one after another, just plop, 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 and then told to net install. So it would push the config, it would put the correct firmware version on there. I mean, the good thing about that is it makes it the default config, so that if somebody holds the button and resets it, it just goes back to my configuration. Even though, I mean, honestly, I've made some modifications since that original config went out. It'll still at least come back up online and be manageable. And you mentioned Ansible. That's what I'm using to do my configuration updates on all of my stuff, was Ansible, because I can just tell it to go, and it will, like you said, touch all of those. Granted, yeah, if one of them was offline, that would be problematic for sure. So I can definitely see value in that.
It's like that with a lot of tooling. If it's not online, it's not going to just know, I need to do this as soon as it comes back online.
Yeah.
Sure.
And to be honest, not all of my MikroTik scripts are idempotent, so some of them aren't exactly safe to rerun more than once on an existing device. What were you going to say, Mike? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, bud.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and to me, the nice thing about TR-069 is that you don't have to necessarily, all depending on what options, because there's a wide range of what is actually supported by each device manufacturer. And and then there's a wide range of extensions, TR-143, TR-124, so on, that add additional functionality beyond what they had originally thought about. But you can have a single pane of glass for your CSR, which is whatever your ACS is, and it doesn't matter if it's a MikroTik or a ComTrend or a Zyzel or a BEC or whatever device on the other side. The CSR has no clue. It just sees, do a ping test, do this, what are the Wi-Fi clients like? They have no idea what's going on. It's just they have one dashboard, and they're completely isolated from whatever it is that's actually at the client hardware-wise.
And when you say CSR, you're just talking about like somebody in your company that's answering phones, right?
Yep. Just your help desk. They call up and, hey, Marin, it doesn't work. Then it doesn't matter what's now. I know that MikroTik isn't as feature rich in this environment as ComTrend, which is what we use for our DSL modems. But like on the DSL modems, you can see everything. Like you can see how many clients are online, how long they've been online, how much data they've moved, what's their signal quality like, all that stuff. And so you can see, in that one dashboard you can see, it's, Susie's calling because there's no internet. Well, Susie's iPad isn't connected. Everything else is. And you can see all that through this system. One thing that's important for people that are doing, CAF2 and other, government funding things is TR-143, which will do performance monitoring. And with the ComTrends, at least, again, it's manufacturer or implementation specific. But like I remember in the demo that I had, I could do an invasive speed test or a non-invasive. Being is that if it was an invasive speed test, it would then cut off all client access. It would kill everybody on all the Ethernet ports. It would kill the Wi-Fi, all those things, and then do a speed test. So you can see, you're complaining about slow internet, and yeah, I do a speed test, I get 1 meg, but when I do an intrusive speed test, I get 75 megs, which is what you pay for, and so therefore you're using the whole. there's just a wide range of things you can do, and it just depends on what the client has built support for, and it's just the same protocol.
Whenever you say intrusive tested, it always makes me think of whenever I would have a circuit go down, I'd call the carrier, and they would always ask, "Hey, do you mind if we do intrusive testing?" And I would say, "Yeah, it's hard down. Like, what are you going to break?
Whatever you want to do."
Yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
It is broken. You can be as intrusive as you would like. It doesn't work.
He's dead. I think you could do whatever you want. Yeah, you can slap him in the face. Feel free. He's not going to feel it.
That's dark.
It does. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming guys at mortuaries play interesting games.
Probably. Yeah. You gotta be a little quirky if that's what you want for your profession.
I have a feeling
people who ride hearses as their personal vehicle.
I think you
know some people like that.
I don't think you seek that out, do you?
I don't think so. You're born with that.
Good times. That's like oh, never mind. I can't make that joke. This is a family show. Let's see. Let's move right along before I do actually say the joke, because I'm laughing still.
And so then in the TR-69 space, so, as Nick was saying, you have the client and then you have the ACS. And there are a variety of ACSs out there. There's some open source, there's some commercial. Some people want to try to make their own.
There's things that the ones on out of the box don't do. So,
what's the is it like Genie ACS or ACS Genie or something like that? Isn't that one of the main open source?
That's one of the biggest open source ones. But like most of those systems, it's like you got to use their pane of glass, and what functionality that's baked in there. Like Genie, because it's open source and it's not like a wrapped up commercial product. There's a lot of flexibility you can do because it has an API. Like you can edit all the config files and you can kind of build the stuff that you want in there, but it's not friendly for like a CSR person to use. Gotcha. So what I would want TR-069 for is not something that you have to. And it's kind of the same philosophy I have for like smart home stuff. Like I don't want to tell it to do stuff. I just want it to know the parameters and do the stuff it's supposed to do. So, I want to be able to integrate with Sonar, and I don't want a CSR to have to use a new tool. They just know that if they put this router on this customer and a technician goes out and plugs it onto the network, it's going to provision with all the correct information. So I need to be able to hook in at the time it builds the configuration script to check into Sonar and check into whatever other systems we have to build the correct config for that specific customer at the time that the router gets provisioned, and then be able to onboard it and manage it at scale without somebody logging into like Genie's UI at all. I just want to use it as a tool for automation that has all the parameters that I'm specifically looking for. And like with MikroTik, you can tell it like if it's not supported in the XML, you could just say run this arbitrary script, and then you could at the end of the script, run a webhook to send information back to the server, because really you only need one endpoint in an app for the what they call it, CWMP, the communication. You could have a whole full-fledged web application with other stuff and whatever you want on the same application. You would just have like the one URL that it hits for the TR-069 piece. So anything I can't do with TR-069, I'm just going to be able to run scripts on the MikroTik and hit a webhook at the end with information that I need to send it back to the server, because the TR-069 component is just going to be one piece of the management stack.
Gotcha. So like Genie is not a management system in the sense of like a Sonar, like you were talking about, where you put your users in there, it's doing their billing and all that stuff. It's really just the TR-069 management piece, right?
Well, I mean, out of the box, like it'll gather a bunch of information. Like if you put a MikroTik in there, it'll pull most of the like generic information that all the devices will support. Because in the report, there's like a whole list of stuff that the CPE must implement these things. and then there's a bunch of stuff that's kind of optional, and there's a whole space of stuff that's really up to the vendor. So just out of the box, it will get a bunch of information, the firmware, the serial, and like display it in the UI. But some of the things you have to add custom parameters for MikroTik specifically, so it's not like, batteries included, but you can do very basic things. You can see how often the device checks in and a few things like that. But outside of that, you have to kind of add and customize the config to do what you need it to do.
So you're going to have some glue in there, one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Depending what you want to do with it. If you just want to do like firmware updates and maybe some, because a lot of the guides and stuff, people are putting like provisioning scripts on the server and telling it to serve like the file in a directory somewhere, when I would rather just, hit other stuff and dynamically build the XML between stuff in the database, between stuff in Sonar. And I don't think it's worth it just because the XML API itself is not super complicated. If I was trying to support every vendor out there, it'd be different, but I mainly just want to manage all the MikroTik kit out there. So I just need, some of the XML API stuff that's necessary, and the rest of it I don't really care that much about. So it's not worth trying to build something around Genie or something else like that when I can just own the system and build what I need as I need it.
Fair enough. I like it.
And for those of us that do not have the ability to do so, that's too much for me. I'm looking at just buying one from Fine Point, and just roll with that.
Fair enough. To each their own. Nick likes doing stuff the hard way. I don't know if you guys have ever.
It depends
noticed
what it is. Depends what it is. If it can't do 80% of what I need it to do, I mean, I'll just build something. But if it does like, a small percentage of what I needed to and a bunch of stuff I don't need at all, then it's kind of like, what's the point? When just do some packet captures, like go through the documentation and start tinkering around with it. So we'll see what it ends up being. It's just, I know that most people I've encountered, I would say, that would be looking for a tool like this would not be able to spin up Genie and get it to do what they would need it to do. So a lot of people kind of spin it up and play with it and then just kind of toss it, because it's hard to like hit the ground running and like start using it in a way that's really impactful or useful. So I know a lot of people right now that have it installed but don't know what they're going to do with it and probably won't ever do anything further with it.
Is there a commercial support option that you could call these guys in and they'll help you get it configured for your environment?
I'd have to look. I'm not 100% sure. I've just dug through their source code a little bit. I haven't really looked at I know they've got a forum and a whole community, so I'm not sure if they do have commercial support or not, but probably for installation potentially, but I don't know if they're going to help everybody integrate and do all kinds of stuff with it, because it's open source. It's not like they have a ton of funding.
I don't know. Sometimes that's what keeps the project going. They do a spin-off company that does the support piece. And, I guess there's a lot of people out there that if they're big enough, they would plunk down 10 grand to have somebody come in, stand up the server, get it ready for their environment. And,
They might not pay for Genie, though. They might pay for one of the commercial ones, like Mikey.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. All right. Well, one thing you were mentioning was firmware upgrades. And so I had on the list, I thought it was really cool, Zach. He's really dove headfirst into the Ansible stuff, and he just put out a playbook for upgrading MikroTiks, which is really cool. So I think you can just generically say update to like the latest version or the right train, or specify a specific version. It'll SFTP it over to the device and do the upgrade for you and maintain all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. So we got a link in the show notes on that one if you guys are interested. I haven't spun the wheels on that one yet. I will probably need to update my CPEs pretty soon, and so maybe I'll give his a spin. I mean, I already have mine up and working, but why not potentially break my whole environment? No, it would be I don't know. It'd be a nice way of spinning the wheels. Giving it a try. So something else I noticed in MikroTik is on the newest beta log. Well, Mike pointed out they they put out a beta version, and then what was it, like 3 hours later they put out another release, Mike, something like that?
Yeah, it was 3, 4, 5 hours, something like that. It was like, and then like what was in the notes like didn't indicate like, oh hey, like we really screwed up. It was just like, oh, here's something else.
Just a little bonus. They just want to give you a little extra. But what I noticed in there that I found interesting is it said 100 gigabit LEDs added to Winbox, and this was on a version 6 beta release. And so I was kind of surprised that they're prepping. Right, there's going to be some piece of equipment that's going to come out with a 100 gig interface with LEDs that's actually going to have V6 support. I just, for whatever reason in my brain, assumed anything that was going to have a 100 gig interface was going to be doing version 7. Does that surprise you guys at all?
Kind of. I mean, that might mean that version 7 is not ready like they thought it was going to be. And so some stuff they might have to backport for now. I don't know.
In my brain, I was just assuming that it was going to be way too much work, that they were probably going to pull in some brand new chipsets or something. So, why backport? But I don't know.
Well, so I mean, before now, no, I would have not thought that. But now that it's been said, looking back, it's like, well, the CCR 2004 does support 25 gig. And it actually has multiple 25 gig lanes. So, and 100 gig for most implementations is 4 25 gig lanes. So is it that big of a stretch that if a chipset supports, like on the 2004, supports 2, who's to say that a bigger one doesn't support more than 2? I mean, it's, it could be in the same chipset family, just a bigger version. So, with hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. It could be for the bigger brother to the 2004.
I have no idea. That would be an Andrew Thrift question. We should just make up something and pretend like he said it.
Andrew Thrift has definitively stated that there's going to be an RB750 V7 that will have a 100 gig port. Mike, please correct us.
RB750?
750.
Exactly what I'm looking for.
Booyah. Love the form factor.
Hap AC Octa or something. Jumping data 8.
So I was just in the same MikroTik vein. I was troubleshooting a link flap issue earlier this week. So I remember out at my MTU, I was having crazy problems. I changed out the core switch for a Cisco, and everything's been great. Well, just for whatever reason, one of the interfaces, the IDFs, decided it was going to flap a little bit, and it error disabled its port. So I turned on error disable recovery. I can't believe I forgot to do that to begin with. But that switch came back up. I don't know. It was just, I saw that there was like a reboot. So for whatever reason, they lost power out there. It came back up, and it was just, every so often, it was just, it would just hammer with link flaps. I looked at it, and signal strength is great on both sides. Like, received signal strength is like holding very consistent. So to me, that says it's not necessarily a fiber issue. Like that really kind of lends away, because it's right in the sweet spot, the signal strength, and it's indoors. It's inside a building, so it's not like it's, like in the wind, like up on a pole where maybe there's like a fracture or something. I don't know. I just, just in my mind, it eliminates all that stuff. So I went ahead and gave it another reboot, and then it's been like, it came back up, flapped a couple times, like just it flapped once, but it did it like 6 times, if that makes sense. One occurrence. And then it's been silent for like 3 days. So it's like everything's fine. So I was thinking I would just go and swap out the optics, right? 10 gig SFP pluses, single mode are cheap enough, $20 a pop. I could just throw the old ones away and put in some new ones. That's kind of where I'm at on it. I'm not sure what else. There's no errors showing up, right? Everything's clean, no CRCs. Signal strength is good. So I'm thinking I'm just going to change the optics. What do you guys think?
Are they FiberStar optics?
Yeah, they're fiber store optics.
I use a lot of fiber store optics. So I'm
use
not
a
pitching
ton.
it. I just know like at this point we have to test them on the bench. So we'll actually like hook them up to a couple CCRs and do bandwidth tests over them and triple check because we've went out and done box deployments and then like within I don't know 6 to 8 hours we start noticing there's errors on some modules that were brand new. So yeah, we use a lot of them, but we've had a lot of issues recently. So now we're trying to use more like LACP and stuff just to make sure if there is a bad module, we don't lose like data. But yeah, when in doubt, just swap it.
Well, yeah, you know what? And the reason I didn't do like redundant ports on those switches before is because I was using what was it, the MikroTik core switch, and I think it only had, what was it got, like eight SFP plus ports or something like that on it. So I didn't have enough to actually do redundancy to everybody. Well, now I've got a 48 port 10 gig switch in there, so I could easily do the redundant connectivity in there. So that might actually be an option. I don't know why I wouldn't do that now at this point. I've actually probably got enough spare optics sitting on the shelf where I could do that as well. Yeah, I figured I would just change out those interfaces.
You just pop a port off and let it go out the other one that is working, and then you can go fix it without taking stuff off.
Yeah,
it's like it's a pain.
I got plenty of fiber infrastructure.
Yeah.
I ran 6 count to each IDF, knowing that I only needed 1 pair over there just in case. For whatever reason, it was just as cheap to do 6 count, so I just did that. Well, it wasn't just as cheap, but it was nearly as cheap, so I went ahead and did that. All right, I'll add that to my list. I'll add the redundancy, and then I'll swap those optics at the same time. I've got a guy who's going to be in the area tomorrow, and he's got 2 optics in his pocket, so I'm going to get him to go ahead and swap them and just chunk them in the trash. I've done that before where you change out an optic that you think is bad, it somehow ends up back in circulation. You don't know which one it is, and it goes back out, and then you have problems at a different site. It's like, oh yeah, I remember now. Good times. Mysterious link flapping. So, Mikey, I know you love talking about Ubiquiti, and you found a little piece of news about them building a warehouse in Memphis, didn't you?
I did. I had seen some rumors, and it's been a little bit. It's been a little bit now, so I don't remember where I saw it initially. But I went and did some digging, and came up with an application that they had to the local, economic development group. And long story short, Ubiquiti is building a new distribution warehouse in the Memphis area. I think they're getting a couple $1 million worth of tax credits and whatnot for it.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah, but the thing that irritated me on it is that it was mentioning, like it. Of course, it's been a couple weeks now, so I don't remember exactly. But the theme of it was, our retail customers need better distribution, and it's funny because they have a whole channel of distributors and resellers that they are starving for inventory.
I mean, they're also going into like 2-year plus warranties on everything that they're selling, and the prices are like either the same or some things I've seen slightly lower just because of stock shortages.
Oh, wow.
Like they're completely just going around the distributors. So that's kind of.
So if you go through a distributor, is the warranty like a year or something, or
1 year.
I mean,
Yep.
it depends. Some of them it's a little bit more, but a lot of it depends on what Ubiquiti's like warranty process is. Like MikroTik is a lot more difficult because usually the customer has to do a support ticket on their own, and then you have to like give that support ticket to your distributor, and then they will go to MikroTik with that information. Some of them not so much, so that it's a little more lenient, but it's just kind of crazy that they are going so hard on distributing all their stuff, selling it on their store. It's kind of crazy.
It and it's a big reversal from the Ubiquiti of before when it was like I I remember a time when, like, they didn't care how old it was. They didn't care what the excuse was. They wanted everything back that you had of theirs that failed, because they wanted to figure it out. Now they do whatever they can to get out of supporting you in any way. And then they're trying to avoid the channel, which is what I believe is propping them up in the first place. The channel is the one providing people with, trained support, because Ubiquiti's not. The channel is the one that's providing you with, meaningful training activities. Ubiquiti makes a PDF that says, "Here, teach this," but it's not really training.
It's even crazier than that, because like the distributors have to buy training kits from Ubiquiti, and only certain distributors in the United States are allowed to purchase said kits. So there's a certain distributor that did not have access to buy the kits directly and had to buy it from another distributor, and it comes with like the T-shirt and a blank certificate, and you can't just print your own. Like you have to get it from somebody, eventually through Ubiquiti, to even do the training in the first place. And all the PDFs for the training is locked. You can't modify or do anything different. You have to go to the Ubiquiti thing. So I'm wondering, like, are they also eventually going to do their own training and cut that out as well? It's just kind of bizarre, considering their track record with even like Unify. You were able to pay for paid support through Unify, like in the UI, and now that's like gone, I think. So I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, what's the consensus thought on this? Is it
train wreck?
I mean,
Dumpster
it's really to boost the stock, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be like, that's got to be
profit play, right?
many multiples more work when you could just hand it off to the distributors like everybody else. Like, I don't know why they would need to go direct.
And like, their whole play was, we run a slim company, so we outsource all this stuff to our fans and our distributors, and now they're cutting the nuts off their distributors.
Well, I was thinking, it's like, why not just pump all of your crap through Amazon? That way they deal with the logistics, they do, the returns, they deal with all that stuff.
It's really expensive.
Yeah,
but
like Amazon fulfillment is incredibly expensive.
You're losing profit. Yeah.
You also don't get to stay in the warranty. Like, if you sell through Amazon, you have to have Amazon's warranty, and they ask no questions if you need to return something or something gets claimed as stolen. Like, you don't get to fight Amazon. You just, whatever warranty Amazon's going to give them or replacement, like, that's just what you have to do. So
now I do want to note that in some other jurisdictions, like over in the EU, there is a 2 or 3 or 4 year, I think it depends on different areas and products, minimum for warranties. So there, the Ubiquiti store, we give you double the warranty, has no merit because the law trumps the warranty that you're offering in the first place.
Yeah, I think Andrew Cox was telling me about Australia's like that. So there's like an assumed warranty, like there's an assumption of, and I'm pretty sure it was in Australia, but there's like this assumption that if you buy a TV, that TV should last on average X number of years, and if it doesn't, regardless of what your like warranty says, the one you want to publish, it's like you're like held liable for that or whatever. So like if they think a TV should reasonably last 8 years and it craps out on year 7, then you're still on the hook for that thing, based on kind of their standards, which I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
What would one expect something to last? Me, I would expect any piece of electronics, absent external influences, flooding, lightning, so on, to last, I mean, not forever, but 10 years, 20 years.
You're still playing your Atari 2600?
Never had one. But some of my original rockets are still running. But, but it's, It's electronic. You know, if there's not something spinning, I expect it to work forever. That's my expectation.
Well,
And
I think a lot of stuff, your capacitors are probably what's going to go bad on it. And, you know, there's a limited shelf life depending on what you're using. Like, I remember Microtik when they were first pumping out the RB750s, or were the 750Gs maybe, that they had those bad caps in there. You remember? And they would last about a year, maybe some change, especially if you heated those jokers up, they'd pop. You'd have to go in there and replace them to get them back up.
Yeah, well, and then, you know, I remember Dell had the same thing, I think about the same time. You know, there was other PC manufacturers that were having, you know, massive capacitor issues. So, somebody over in China, I guess they were drinking in the factory or something, I don't know. Just turned out a bunch of garbage product.
Interesting. All right, well, you've got your Ubiquiti licks in today, so you must be feeling pretty good.
I do feel better, yeah.
Yeah. Something I wanted to say before I forget, there's two of them, actually. One is, it's WISPAmerica this week, right?
Next week. Well,
yeah.
I guess it's Saturday night now, so yeah, you know.
Yeah,
Tuesday.
This week. So I know Justin Wilson, I think he's going to be there all week. So it'd definitely be an opportunity to go say hi to that guy. And I think Ryan McAfee is going to be there. I can't remember. I think there
was 2 or 3 or 4 other people in the Slack that were going to be there at least one day.
Nick, didn't you say you're going?
I'm going, yeah.
Yeah, what days are you going to be there?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
All right, there you go. Find Nick. Look for the pirate.
The pirate, yeah. Pirate in training.
All right, and then the other thing I was going to say is Modem.show, very, very good friend of the show, Nick Braulio and his podcast. They did the Dave Taht interview, and that guy's pretty charming. He's pretty kooky. He's fun to listen to. And then I think the outro song was actually played by him. It was like a song about rockets launching. So it was pretty cool. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go check that one out. I actually put that one on 2x speed, and it was just about right for me. I don't know why. I've got to listen to stuff at high speed now. Go ahead.
I know you had a lot to say about buffer bloat. Did you have a listen to that podcast?
I haven't yet.
Okay, you should.
But,
a lot of good information in there.
I mean, but like, you know, having not listened to it, I think that I think my comments have been exaggerated.
That's why I'm making the comment, because it seems like everyone thinks that you're like so anti buffer bloat, like you're gonna go get a pitchfork and go hunt it down.
I hear Mike over here crawfishing. He's backing away.
I mean, you know, I think it just gets more play than it deserves. And the caveat that the opposite is a problem, but it doesn't get nearly as much play. Too small a buffers is disastrous as well. You know, tough switch. That was its problem. Too small a buffers, and if you had mixed speeds, your experience was garbage. You know, on the IX, you know, you have a CDN slinging data at 100 gigs towards a customer that only has a 100 meg port. There's massive issues caused by too small a buffer.
You're going to have a bad time, huh?
Yeah.
So what's this excessive jitter on router OS thing you put in here?
I haven't actually read it yet. I just clicked the link and saw all kinds of pretty graphs and tables.
There's tons. Like, their lab is like pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's like, you know, seeing a lab of like, I mean, there's what appears to be like a couple dozen, like, you know, 750s or something like that, and you know, they're tracking jitter from one router OS version to another. So they've built a whole, I guess dozens is like exaggerating it now that I opened it again. I mean, there's a lot. Let's see. But And there's just all kinds of ping graphs, just dozens and dozens of ping graphs in a big table of ROS version this and minimum latency, average latency, all kinds of different devices. And they're tracking that stuff out for whatever reason.
Yeah, like all kinds of versions. It's interesting.
We got this link just a couple hours ago.
It says MikroTik RouterOS 6.46.2 introduced a change that has led to excessive jitter. Problem persists to various degrees throughout 646.3 to 647.1 versions, but appear to have been resolved in 647.2. Interesting. Yeah, man, they really went ham chasing this down.
They're probably like a VoIP provider or something, and they're like, something's wrong with these routers. We need to get
ham radio nerds.
Oh, even better.
Even better or even worse? How would you...
You give them a vendetta. They're like, we know there's something wrong. It's not our equipment. It's these routers.
Which I guess kind of circles back to your voice thing. You're talking about, they're using DMR and P25 and all kinds of digital voice transmissions. So, jitter probably is not too good for those. Yeah.
Wow, there's so much data.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know what to do with all this data. Like I'm looking at it, it's like, wow, that's somebody else look through all that, then tell me what's happening.
Yeah, the summary is there's some versions of jitter for sure.
That's bonkers. Well, those are people with a lot more time on their hands than me. It's interesting. You guys give it a read. Give us the evaluation. How about AS 8003? What's going on with that one?
So I saw some chatter on Nanog last month, I think it was. And then since then, I've seen a blog post by Kentic, a Washington Post article that I didn't read. Well, I figured that since Kentic referenced it, anything useful would be in the Kentic article. And then someone else sent me a link, actually while we were filming just now, to an article by AP News that seems to have a lot more technical information and chasing down, who these organizations are and so on. To circle back, so the U.S. Department of Defense has a somewhat unique connection to the internet, given that they invented it, more or less. Boiling it down to a few words. And as such, they have a significant amount of IP space, of which was not really advertised to the global internet. And most internet registries, if not all of them, they don't actually require you to publish or to announce your IP space to the public internet. You just have to prove you need it to be unique for some reason. Now, obviously, these guys just kept it, IP space from when they built it. Again, boiled down. But since January, 3 minutes before the transfer of power from Trump to Biden, they started announcing their IP space out of AS 8003. 8003 goes back to a fairly nondescript company out of Florida. The AP News article was kind of running down to, it seems like just a series of shell corporations. There's not a lot of things going on. Now, people's names aren't listed anywhere. There's, I see mention of a UPS store. Initially, it was thought it was all hijacked, but apparently a Pentagon official, what started this all up again the past few days is a Pentagon official confirmed, yes, that's us. Yes, we're doing something new with it.
Interesting. I'm looking at a
And
little
so-
chart here, and it's saying largest ASs by originated IPv4 addresses. This 8003 is now the largest
Yeah, like
at like 175 million addresses.
yeah. I mean, they went from nothing to the largest AS by IP space in just a matter of 2 or 3 months because they were just were announcing what they had. And yeah, now they're announcing 175 million IPs. And so there's a lot of speculation as to why they're doing this. I mean, they've said for, cybersecurity operation research and stuff. So some people are speculating that it may now be the world's largest honeypot. And so yeah, that would be. I mean, I would think that any intelligent, sophisticated attackers would know that and not target it. It's like,
Well, I mean, they could
so
launch
there's a
some
honeypot?
massive DDoS attacks from there as well, couldn't they?
yeah, and just the amount of things you could do with that amount of IP space is just amazing. But yeah, so we'll see. This is a developing story. So we'll see what happens with this over the next few weeks or months. I mean, I would think that if it was not legitimate, when it came up on Nanog, if it wasn't legitimate, I would assume it would have been swatted down immediately. I mean, DoD's not going to let that happen if it's not okay.
They had to know people would notice too, right? It's not something that you just kind of
Yeah, I mean,
casually do.
I mean, you could throw out a couple /8s, but I mean, if it's 175 million, that's more than 10 /8s. People are, yeah. I mean, and then the dollar amount of that IP space, as you get people stealing, any IP space that they can to sell, and the DoD just says, here's 175 million of them that we're just not even using on the public internet, but here we go.
Just want you to know we have them.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just
Now,
flexing? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
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 Oh, it is.
That's the biggest internet flex I ever saw. But someone else was saying that, kind of along the lines of, you're not required to announce your IP space to the public internet to warrant justification for it. Not that they're held to those requirements, but it just requires that you need it to be globally unique. So yeah, if there's an IP address on a cruise missile or something, I don't know, but if there is, I surely shouldn't be able to telnet to it. So yeah, why route it? I mean, why would it be routable? They probably have an immense need for internal IP space for all of their things, and I could see it being an issue if people start announcing parts of their IP space, hijacking it. At least now it's all right. Here we're announcing it now, so it's not just some fallow space that no one's gonna notice. I mean, someone could still hijack it. That's not gonna stop it, but there's a bit more of a record now. And
Well, it would be interesting too if they got all of their address space on the asset lists, so that it's valid in everybody's filters, and then I don't know, say they decided to hit a country with, I don't know, like 350,000 /24s simultaneously, or a few million /24 simultaneously. It would technically be valid in their filters, right? And would go through.
sure.
The first time,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the first time.
I wouldn't say the first time. I'd say probably the first dozen times because people don't learn. But so who knows what all they actually intend to do with it. But I mean, that's the biggest internet flex I've seen in a while.
That's interesting. So let's see, what else do we have on the list? There was a question a little while back about moonlighting. And do you allow your employees to moonlight? What are your opinions on moonlighting? And I actually read an article in the Harvard Business Review yesterday or the day before that kind of talked about this very thing. And so I thought it was sort of apropos. I read that thing, I found that intriguing, and then the question had been presented. I was curious what you guys thought about moonlighting. Moonlighting be your employees have other employment at the same time, or I don't know, it could be similar veins or it could be completely different. Like, what are your opinions on that stuff?
I mean, if you're not infringing on intellectual property, you kind of can't do anything about it. And if it's not causing issues with the primary job, then there shouldn't be an issue. I mean, especially with things like, installers. I hear this a lot about installers that are also doing like DirecTV or whatever else on the side, like installing stuff that could technically be competitors. But I think most judges, if you were to try to pursue that, you can't really go after somebody that has what you could call like a trade skill. Like, even if you have a non-compete, you can't really stop them from working in that type of job because that's like a skill that they have acquired. I mean, I think it's pretty common, but I guess it depends. Like, if you're really concerned about it, I saw some other comments that I agree with, like maybe pay your people more so they don't have to seek out additional work. But I don't see the issue with people doing what they need to do to make a little extra income. Just don't give away the secrets, company secrets, if there are any.
Right. Yeah. Or anything that, is, like you said, proprietary to that company. They do something a very specific way. You can't just take that and start, doing it everywhere else. I mean, you can't take the KFC recipe and start cooking your own chicken on the side. Mm-hmm. That's obviously bad form and stuff like that. But what I was curious about is, because I've talked to some employers or employees or whatever, just people in general. And some employers don't want you doing anything else. And I think I saw somebody say in the comments that in like their state, if you make less than $100,000, you can't like put any language about, non-compete or whatever in there. It's like no moonlighting, I guess, because that counts as they I guess just having to make ends meet, put all that stuff together. I do. Yeah, it's a sticky one for me because I've always had a bunch of jobs simultaneously. Like there's very, very, very few times in my life where I've just had like a single thing going on. And I think a lot of it is has to do with me and kind of I just fear of like if I lose my job, what am I going to do? So if I have kind of like these multiple things going on, it helps me. But also, there's been parts of my life where I've gotten stagnant in my day job and I've gotten bored. And so to push myself, I've had to find stuff outside of that, just to keep me kind of, keep that part of my brain engaged. And honestly, that's what kept me at the employer. Because if I was stuck there and I couldn't go outside and do anything else, and, I would have left. And honestly, I probably would have been better served had I left. I don't know. I can't say that because I'm happy where I am now. But this Harvard Business Review article was talking about this guy who worked in the banking industry. He did it for a really long time, but he also loved music, and so he wanted to be a music producer. So he just started doing it on the side, and he started using his own money to do it because he knew, he didn't have any cred or anything like that. So it was the only way anybody was going to let him do it. So he just started taking on free stuff, and subsequently now he still has he has people seek him out. Now he's actually won like several Grammys or something for his music production, but he doesn't take money for it because it it sort of fulfills a part of him that he would never get, working, because I think he's like some C level at like a Fortune 500 now or whatever. And he was saying that not only does he think everybody should do it, or everybody should be allowed to do it, but they actually, should take that upon themselves to kind of find fulfillment in other places. And he says that, one job would feed the other, right? So whenever he's schmoozing clients at his, at his day job, the Fortune 500 gig, like trying to close a deal or whatever, he would bring them to some of his production sessions, right? And let them kind of sit in the booth with him, behind the scenes, get to meet these musicians and stuff, so that they could see him outside of work. I've learned a lot of business happens outside the office, especially in big companies and corporations. And so it's really interesting how he was talking about you'll have opportunities, you'll learn skills that are going to help you in all of the jobs that you're doing, especially like your main gig. It's really going to help you. And I was thinking that is so super true for me, because like doing this podcast has helped me learn to talk to people and be able to vamp really quickly and come up with stuff and ask questions. And the LinkedIn Learning, the Linda stuff, that's taught me to be paced and how to teach people and, just kind of look at the world a different way and be more confident. So it definitely, all of those things make me so much more capable at what I'm doing. And there's often been times where that was the only reason I could pay my rent. I could pay my mortgage just because I had that extra set of income. And so I've had jobs, one in particular that threatened to fire me because I was moonlighting. And it was funny because they started reviewing all the things I was doing, and they're like, well, we want you to do this one and this one because we think that makes you look, more, what is it, like a trusted advisor or whatever in this industry. But we don't want you to do this one and this one. And they couldn't really give me a good reason why. And ultimately, I think the reason was because they were afraid I was just going to be successful at this other thing and then leave. But they also said, well, they told me the story about how this guy that was a research scientist wanted to do something that was like so completely different, almost like he wanted to like make soap or something. You know what I mean? And they told him no, because what if we decide we want to start making soap? You know what I mean? And I was like,
we might just
seriously, this is the rationale.
So you can't ever do it.
Yeah, I was like, this is insanity. So I eventually left that place. But it was also, to me, that it felt really insulting. It felt so short-sighted. You know what I mean? It's like, look at me as a person that has put so much into this place, and I'm only just expanding myself and building myself and make myself better for you guys as well. And I guess some people can't see beyond the end of their nose when it comes to that stuff. So, but I know that's not for everybody, right? I'm sure there's some people where that absolutely, they're the kind of person that, would just sit on company time and do a completely other job and, collect a check or whatever.
Sure. And so I think a lot of that is, do you have the capacity, the discipline to maintain, separation of duties? If you are expected to put in 40 hours a week at place A, and, say they have a schedule, you have to then make sure that, you don't even, leave work early to go do one of your other jobs, because now that is infringing on the first one. It's like,
right.
Yes, it's not the same thing, but you have now not done something that you could have done for the first company because you were doing your second thing. If you're if you are doing DirecTV installs on the side, you have to make sure that you don't use your WISP installation drill or drill bits or things like that. It's not just that, should you have the freedom to, but you then have the responsibility to then ensure that you can do it separately. Or if not, that everything else is above board. Hey, I'm going to rent this, or, there can be no hiding of things that might be mixing of interests, and
don't sell
a lot of
direct to your WISP install that you're doing during your day job.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like stuff
That's
like that.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It
I mean, that feels like common sense, but I think to a lot of people that
People
may not
do
be
that.
common sense.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's-
People do that, and they're like, I didn't know. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I never told you couldn't show up to a customer's house naked either, but you somehow understood that wasn't a good idea. You know, it's kinda, come on.
Yeah, and so then it's, or it's like, wearing company A, uniform while you're doing work for company B. It's like, it's just like, and it's maybe not a whole uniform, but maybe you're a guy that wears a hat and you've got a hat from company A, you're from your WISP and you're out doing DirecTV installs, with your company A hat on, and then the customer you're installing DirecTV for calls up company A, like, hey, you were here installing DirecTV. If you want the trust to do things separate, you have to have the responsibility of keeping it separate.
Yeah.
Where
I wholly
appropriate.
understand that. Yeah. Or like people that will wear their company uniform to the bar and just get sloppy drunk. It's like, come on, man. You know what I mean? It's like when you have that uniform on, you're a representation of the company. You know what I mean? You're like speaking on behalf. And like you said, Mike, if you show up and do work wearing that uniform, then you're representing that company as you're doing that stuff. So that's definitely not okay.
I don't. Well, so I'm in a position where it's like, okay, my one company, it's just me. I'm the only one, so I have no one to irritate. Other company, it is. It's actually its ownership is comprised of companies. There's not an individual that has a share. So then it's like, and it's all of people that already have multiple hats. So it's mixing of things is assumed. And then the third company that I'm working with is it's a lot more traditional in that respect. And I would think that just speaking off the top of my head here, I would think that I would want to know, kind of feeding off of the pay your employee more so they won't moonlight. I like to find out what it is that drove them to do it. Did they need to make more money? Did they need to embrace some other complementary skill set? If they're going to make soap, no, I'm not going to make soap. But if you're moving into, doing, I'm just video surveillance or something like that. It's like, well, maybe we would do that, and maybe you could head that division. Maybe we would pay you more to then do our video surveillance, division. So you get that, the itch scratched of doing something different, and we get that you're still ours. And so it's kind of, finding out what the reason is for it. Now if it's delivering pizzas, then
right. Well, like you have, you just talked about a couple of lives you have. So you own your own WISP, and yet you've been employed by another company that sells internet service and does
in the same
IT
geographic area.
I know, and yet they can trust you to separate church and state there, right?
Yeah.
So
and actually
it's
they
possible.
probably benefit more than I would because of my connections and my experience and my networking of that. So actually, in that case, the company who is not, me is the one benefiting from the fact that I'm not, I was trying to think of some fancy phrase, but I can't. So, I'm not, I'm not bound to one place. They're benefiting from the fact that I'm not bound to one place. They actually, as you're talking about, kind of a, one of your former employers over at, they like the idea that you did X and Y. this guy that I work for, he talks about, hey, Mike does this with this podcast, and Mike does this, and Mike has been to all these things and does all this stuff. That's the talent that we have. So it's it's good for them that I have more than one hat.
It does. And I think if it's growing you as a person, right, it's increasing your skill set. It's going to make you more capable in all assets of your life, right? So, or facets of your life. As long as you don't let one thing, right, distract from, your bread and butter, and that kind of. It's like, I'm an Ansible SSA at Red Hat. That doesn't mean I'm going to start going and doing Ansible consulting. Like that would be madness. Yeah. The company I work for sells Ansible consulting. Why would I do that? To be honest with you, I'm not just drinking the Kool-Aid, brother. I'm swimming in it every day. Like I'm out doing laps in the backyard in the Red Hat Kool-Aid. It's like an awesome place to work for. So there is nothing. I would do nothing to jeopardize that position over there. It's like the best job ever.
Something I just thought of. Airing now on, I believe, the History Channel. Which I'm sure it's available online or something, is a show called The Food That Built America. And it's about a bunch of, people that pioneered different things that have become staples, not just American food, but food worldwide, whether it's something new entirely or a new process or taking something that was an ultra luxury and making it common. And so many of these instances, there's a story of somebody who was doing something for somebody else, and the somebody else was a stick in the mud, or
didn't have the vision.
One was Campbell's Soup had bought Swanson, the people that do the TV dinners, and Swanson had the largest by far market share in the TV dinner space, and the lady that kind of pioneered some of that, went to, their contact at Swanson and was like, hey, I need funding to, Stouffer's is working on this, microwave dinner line, and I think we need to compete with that. And they didn't have the vision, of microwaves aren't a thing now. I mean, it's just in select cases. No, we're not going to do that. And then ultimately, Stouffer's won that space because they had the product available. They didn't have the lead time, and it was, that lady went. She had the vision. She had, let's do this, and the company wouldn't let her. Now, she didn't go do it on her own, but there are other stories where something like that did happen, where somebody left to go do their own company because they felt constrained where they were. So, it's not just a money thing. It's, what is the itch that you have, and how can we help you scratch it so that you don't go scratch it somewhere else?
Yeah. That makes me think of like Kevin Smith, the director, is friends with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And they were like, dude, why don't you write a movie so we can get like an Oscar or something? And he goes, if it's that easy, why don't you guys go do it yourselves? And then they went and wrote Good Will Hunting. So sometimes you just gotta go and do the thing, which makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's a mixed bag because when you paint the picture of the guy doing installs, and he's trying to install right to those. It's like there's definitely a conflict of interest there. I can definitely see that. And the idea of conflict of interest, I guess, comes into moonlighting as well. So like if you meet somebody through the company, they know you through that company, and you have a negative interaction, on some kind of side job you're doing for them, I could see how that would reflect poorly on the main company. So I can kind of see both sides of it. Just so long as you, you don't poop where you eat, you just kind of keep all that stuff separate. I'm less inclined to be concerned about it. And honestly, like the guys I've had working for me in the past that would do some moonlighting on the side, it's basically don't do it with anybody that you meet here, keep it outside. And those guys learned and they grew and they became better at what they were doing because of it. So I don't know. I've always seen a lot of positive come out of it, but I definitely see where you're coming from on some of that stuff.
Yet, and so how you can, you may be, now looking at all this, like, okay, I do see there's pros and cons. How do you manage it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. If one of you have figured out the perfect policy that's enforceable and addresses all the concerns, let us know.
Yeah.
Because I imagine everybody else wants that policy.
Well, it's just like with the LinkedIn Learning stuff. I'm revamping one of my courses tomorrow. I'm probably going to finish doing the bulk of the recording because it's like due early May. But that was one of the things they liked, and they definitely encouraged me to keep doing because, right, it looks good for me, which in turn looks good for them because, they're putting me in front of customers to be some expert or whatever. And so the more exposure you get in that realm, just the more valuable it makes you look.
So we're going to see a LinkedIn Learning Red Hat course?
See, that's where it gets into that interesting territory where I'm not sure I want to venture over there. I don't know, man. I don't know if there's like an Ansible networking one on there that would be maybe interesting, but see, then we also have some training stuff, so that would definitely be something I would have to run up the flagpole first before I try to do any of that stuff.
Every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes, commercial paid support is available for Ansible.
Dude, it is. No, that's believe it or not, that's one of the things I push. These big Fortune 500 companies, that's like some of them are behind the gun on something, whatever it happens to be. If it's like they've got this exponential growth or we've got this compliance problem or whatever, it's like, yeah, usually the engineers that I'm talking to are already stretched, and it's like, it's tough for us to get in here and do that. Well, it's like, well, then why don't you pay this expert who can do it in a fraction of the time, have the templates already up and working for you and
support it for you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's that too. But just, to have somebody basically bait the fishing pole, drive you out there in the boat, and then cast it for you and just hand you the pole. It's like, yeah, I bet you I'm going to catch a fish pretty fast. And then I saw how it worked the first time. I bet I can pick up and move pretty quick based on this.
But if you don't, though, it's like, hey, you got a contact now. Like, you're not by yourself anymore on this one product, at least.
Yeah.
Which is pretty huge.
Yeah.
If something happens, like, you got a number to call now.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Everybody needs a Nick Arolana in their life they can just holler at.
Holler at me.
Holler at your boy. I know it's, I definitely see, do see that, like, if you were to ask me 5 years ago about, paying somebody for, implementation services, I'd be like, are you insane? And now I'm like, who can we pay to get this done?
Well, if you're paying for commercial support, like, it's not like you have to go, okay, well, let me work around my schedule, like maybe sometime next month. It's like, now if you're paying for a commercial support contract, it's like, no, you've got like a lot of companies, you have a representative that's for your account. You need help, you're stuck, something happens, no problem. You're paying for the support. So, even when I do consulting, for most people, I try to find, even if it's open source, something that has some kind of commercial support offering, because it's invaluable. Like, if I'm not available, it's like, hey, just call this number. They'll take care of it. They'll help you better than I can because it's their product. So everything should always have a lifeline. If you want to cheap out on that, well, it's like what we talked about before with security. How much downtime can you afford? And how complicated is the tool? Like, if you're going to start struggling, do you want to try to rush through getting a support contract last minute? Or do you want to get familiar with somebody and know how the process is going to work so it's less stressful? Like, it's up to you, but it's a night and day difference when you have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, too, simple stuff like we're moving to a new major revision number on this open source software. And being able to make that migration on your own can be terrifying sometimes. Or, you just know that you've lost a whole week of your life is going to be gone. when we make this, or if you've got commercial support, guess what?
Yeah.
I could actually let this guy do it for me.
Mikey's done a really old software version migration to current a few times recently, haven't you?
I have had to do some of that, and some things are still stuck on old because there's no good way out. There's custom code.
Yeah.
I'm
I
hoping we
digress.
hire the guy that made it so that then he just does it. Hey, move this to a new platform.
I'm telling you, we all need a Nick Arolano.
Dude, there's so much better than me out there too.
Yeah, but they're far less
I'm not the
piratey.
golden less piratey.
Yeah. Good times. All right. Well, we are at about the normal mark where we stick a fork in it. Is there any pressing things you guys need to just say? Anything you got to get out of there?
1 or 2 sentences. If anybody has experienced Office 365 shared mailboxes go missing, let me know, because I can't figure it out. Google can't figure it out. Microsoft 365 chat, forum. The forum's like, put in a ticket. I can't put in a ticket because there's no option there to put in a ticket. My reseller says, I don't know. So if any of you experience that, let me know.
Call me now.
In that case, you don't have to go to patreon.com/BrothersWisp to reach out to me. You may reach out to me directly at... I'm easy to find.
At Mike's OnlyFans site.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. If you want people to get a hold of you out on the internet, how would you have them do that?
Well, if you can help me solve this Office 365 problem, you may reach me at Facebook and Twitter and many other places. If you Google my name and Illinois, you'll probably find lots of things out there, ways to find me. For anything else, go to patreon.com/thebrotherswisp and become a sponsor and talk to me in Slack.
Excellent. All right. Nick Arolano, with the complicated spelling there, how would you have people get a hold of you out on the internet?
You can email me at nick.a@hey.com, or you can go to patreon/thebrotherswisp. And once you become a patron and you get into the Slack channel, you can go into announcements, and I'll have a code word on my website that you can type in there, and some guy will private message you and get you in contact with me. So become a patron.
It's very, it just sounds very like spycraft. Very...
Oh, it is. That's the kind of excitement you get if you're in the Slack group.
The kind of excitement you're going to get with this guy. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Maybe I should have that. Maybe I should have, here's some short URL to go to, and we'll send you a
scavenger
text.
Hunt to find Mike.
And then this text is a link to an Android app, and then the Android app downloads this, and then takes a picture of your face, and then it sends it over to here, and then you scan this QR code that it generates, and maybe I can go through all that.
And then it turns out Mike's really just a deep fake. He's never been real.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You're not even at the data center, are you?
Spoiler alert. All right. If you want to find me, I'm Greg at gregsoul.com, where I very regularly blog. Let's see what else. The YMI podcast, ymipod.com, that's been going. I've got another one popping out tomorrow. It's this guy, John O. Wilson.
Moonlighter, you.
He's I know, dude. I love it. He's an actor I found from an AT&T commercial and hunted him down. And then he talked to me. So, dude, I'm like on full stalker mode over here. It's getting uncomfortable examining myself through that lens. No, I really have a lot of fun. Also, you can find me at patreon.com/thebrotherswisp. You pop in there, throw me a DM, or at me in any of those fun little channels, and I'm usually pretty quick to answer. If you guys have any questions or comments, please fire away. Mikey, Nick, thank you guys for joining today, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye. So then we click stop, and then we come over here and we click.
If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.